Did Netflix accidentally bury its strangest movies where only midnight viewers will find them? Some of these old cult films were mocked, ignored, misunderstood, or treated like cinematic accidents, until years later, fans realized they had something modern movies are missing: danger, personality, and madness. Tonight, we are opening the weird side of Netflix, where haunted houses, alien darkness, crime fever, and comedy chaos still feel a little too alive. Number 15. B-Movie, 2007. Some cult movies are born in theaters. Others are kidnapped by the internet and turned into something far stranger than their creators ever intended. B-Movie looks innocent at first, a bright animated comedy about a bee who sues the human race for stealing honey. But the longer it sits in pop culture, the weirder it becomes. The story is absurd, the romance subtext is bizarre, and the entire premise feels like a children's movie that accidentally wandered into a courtroom fever dream. Jerry Seinfeld's dry delivery only makes the madness sharper because every ridiculous scene is treated with total seriousness. That is why it became a meme machine years later. People did not just remember B-Movie, they remixed it, mocked it, quoted it, and turned it into late-night internet folklore. It is not scary, but it is deeply strange. And sometimes, that is exactly what a midnight cult movie needs. Number 14. Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed, 2004. This is the kind of movie that feels like a haunted toy box exploded after midnight. Scooby-Doo 2: Monsters Unleashed throws subtlety out the window and gives the audience pure monster chaos. Ghosts, costumes, slime, fake scares, real danger, and a city that treats Mystery Inc. like washed-up celebrities. That is what makes it more interesting than people admit. Beneath the goofy jokes and rubber-faced villains, the film is secretly about public humiliation, nostalgia, and a team trying to prove they still matter. Matthew Lillard's Shaggy and Linda Cardellini's Velma give it the emotional weirdness fans remember, while the monster designs feel like a live-action tribute to Saturday morning nightmares. Critics were not kind, but cult audiences do not always care about critical respect. They care about mood. And this movie has mood. Neon horror, camp comedy, and childhood fear with the lights slightly dimmed. It is messy, loud, strange, and somehow impossible to fully hate. Number 13. Scooby-Doo, 2002. Some movies age badly. Others age into exactly the kind of weirdness people were not ready to appreciate. Scooby-Doo from 2002 is one of those films. On paper, it should have been a simple family adventure. Instead, it became a strange live-action fever dream about a spooky island, brainwashed teenagers, fake monsters, celebrity culture, and a mystery that feels far more unhinged than expected. The casting is the real secret weapon. Matthew Lillard does not just play Shaggy, he practically resurrects him in human form. Sarah Michelle Gellar, Freddie Prinze Jr., Linda Cardellini, and Rowan Atkinson all add to the odd early 2000s energy, where everything feels glossy, sarcastic, and slightly cursed. The film was trimmed and softened for a younger audience, but you can still feel the stranger version hiding underneath. That is why it survives. It is not just nostalgia, it is a time capsule from an era when studios accidentally made children's movies that felt like late-night cult comedies in disguise. Number 12. Muriel's Wedding, 1994. Do not let the bright colors fool you. Muriel's Wedding has teeth. At first glance, it looks like a quirky comedy about a socially awkward woman obsessed with ABBA songs and fantasy weddings. But underneath the glitter is a sharp, painful story about loneliness, rejection, fake happiness, and the desperate need to become someone else. Toni Collette's Muriel is not written like a perfect heroine. She lies, steals, embarrasses herself, and chases a dream that may not even belong to her. That is what makes the film so strangely powerful. It understands the dark side of wanting a better life so badly that you start performing one. In 1994, audiences found the humor. Years later, cult fans found the sadness underneath. The film became beloved because it refuses to be clean or simple. It is funny, uncomfortable, emotional, and quietly brutal. By the end, Muriel's real victory is not romance. It is finally escaping the version of herself everyone else tried to trap her inside. Number 11. The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, 1992. The most dangerous monster is not always hiding in the dark. Sometimes she is smiling in the nursery. The hand that rocks the cradle turns the safest place in the world, the family home, into a slow-burning psychological battlefield. The story follows Peyton, played with icy control by Rebecca De Mornay, a woman who enters a household as the perfect nanny. She is calm, helpful, gentle with the baby, and almost too good to question. But beneath that soft voice is a revenge plan designed to dismantle an entire family from the inside. That is what makes the film so nasty and effective. There are no ghosts, no masked killers, no supernatural tricks. The horror comes from trust being poisoned, one small gesture at a time. A mother begins to doubt herself. A husband is quietly manipulated. A child is pulled closer to danger without understanding it. In 1992, the film tapped into a deep domestic fear. The idea that the person you invite into your private life may understand your weaknesses better than you do. That fear still works because the movie does not rush. It lets suspicion grow like a stain across every room. By the end, the house no longer feels like protection. It feels like a trap. Its punchy truth is simple. Never underestimate a villain who does not need to break in, because you already opened the door. Number 10. Fallen, 1998. A killer dies in front of everyone, and somehow the evil keeps walking. That impossible fear is what makes Fallen such a cold, underrated midnight thriller. Denzel Washington plays Detective John Hobbs, a man who believes he has finally ended a brutal case after the execution of serial killer Edgar Reese. The problem is, death does not close the door. Soon, the murders begin again with the same pattern, the same taunting rhythm, and the same chilling sense that something invisible is moving through ordinary people. The genius of Fallen is that it does not treat evil like a man with a weapon. It treats evil like a disease, a whisper, a presence that can pass from body to body with terrifying ease. Every stranger becomes suspicious. Every touch feels dangerous. Every crowd suddenly feels like a hiding place. The use of "time is on my side" becomes one of the film's creepiest weapons, turning a familiar song into a supernatural threat. In 1998, audiences expected another stylish serial killer story, but Fallen gave them something stranger. A detective movie where logic collapses because the enemy may not be human at all. Washington gives the film weight, control, and quiet exhaustion, making Hobbs feel like a good man trapped in a game he was never meant to win. Its final impact is brutal. Some thrillers end when the killer is caught. Fallen suggests the real nightmare begins when evil proves it never needed one face. Number 9. House on Haunted Hill, 1999. A haunted house becomes much worse when the house is actually an asylum that remembers every scream. House on Haunted Hill takes an old horror concept and drags it into late 90s madness, turning a simple survival game into a glossy nightmare full of shadows, machines, medical horror, and pure, haunted attraction energy. A wealthy showman invites a group of strangers to spend one night inside an abandoned psychiatric hospital, promising a fortune to anyone who survives until morning. It sounds like a cruel party trick, but the building has its own history, and that history is not finished with the living. The real power of the film is its atmosphere. The corridors feel diseased. The walls seem to watch. Every room looks like something terrible happened there and never fully ended. Jeffrey Rush gives the story theatrical menace, while Famke Janssen brings a sharp, poisonous glamour that makes every argument feel like another trap. Critics often treated the film as loud, messy, and excessive, but that is exactly why it became perfect midnight viewing. It is not trying to be quiet prestige horror. It wants to grab you by the collar and throw you into a screaming funhouse. In 1999, that style felt overblown. Now, it feels like part of the charm. Its verdict is simple. House on Haunted Hill may not be the smartest haunted film on Netflix, but when the lights are off, it knows exactly how to make the room feel unsafe. Number 8. The Chronicles of Riddick, 2004. Some cult movies become strange because they fail quietly. The Chronicles of Riddick became strange because it aimed for the sky, missed perfection, and still left behind something massive, gothic, and unforgettable. After the stripped-down darkness of Pitch Black, audiences expected another lean survival thriller. Instead, they were thrown into a giant space opera filled with death cult armies, prison planets, royal bloodlines, prophecy, betrayal, and Vin Diesel moving through it all like a mythic outlaw carved out of stone. That is why the film divided people. It was not small. It was not safe. It built an entire universe around Riddick and dared viewers to accept him as more than a killer with glowing eyes. The Necromongers remain the film's most fascinating creation, a religious military empire that crosses the galaxy converting worlds through fear, ritual, and destruction. The production design feels heavy, metallic, ancient, and almost medieval, as if science fiction and dark fantasy were forced into the same nightmare engine. In 2004, many viewers thought it was too serious, too overloaded, and too strange for mainstream sci-fi. But years later, those flaws became part of its cult identity. Modern blockbusters often feel polished until they become forgettable. The Chronicles of Riddick is the opposite. It is uneven, dramatic, excessive, and completely unafraid to look weird. Its punchy truth is clear. This may not be perfect sci-fi, but it is the kind of expensive madness studios rarely dare to make anymore. Number 7. Riddick, 2013. Riddick works best when the universe stops pretending to be civilized and leaves him somewhere brutal enough to kill everyone else. Riddick brings the character back to survival mode, and that is exactly why the film has such a strong midnight pulse. After the massive mythology of the Chronicles of Riddick, this chapter strips the legend down to bone. One wounded predator, one hostile planet, one storm of mercenaries, and creatures waiting for darkness to turn the landscape into a feeding ground. Vin Diesel understands Riddick completely by this point. He does not play him like a clean hero. He plays him like a dangerous survivor with animal patience, a man who speaks softly because violence is already waiting behind his eyes. The opening stretch is almost primal. Riddick is injured, abandoned, and forced to rebuild himself through pain, instinct, and hunger. It feels like a monster movie where the monster is also the one we are rooting for. Then the mercenaries arrive, and the film becomes a pressure cooker of ego, greed, fear, and survival. Every character thinks they are hunting Riddick, but the cruel joke is that they have stepped into his natural environment. The creatures, the rain, the planet, and the darkness all become part of the trap. What makes the film work is its simplicity. It proves Riddick does not need a giant empire, a prophecy, or a throne to feel iconic. He only needs danger, silence, and fools who believe they can control him. That stripped-down approach makes the movie feel older, nastier, and more honest than many polished studio spectacles. Midnight verdict. Riddick is lean, mean, dirty sci-fi with teeth, and it knows exactly what kind of nightmare it wants to be. Number 6. Little Miss Sunshine, 2006. Not every midnight cult film needs monsters hiding in the dark. Sometimes the monster is failure, and Little Miss Sunshine understands that fear with almost painful honesty. On the surface, it is a quirky road trip comedy about a dysfunctional family driving a broken yellow van to a children's beauty pageant. Underneath, it is a quiet attack on the obsession with winning, performing, smiling, and pretending life is not falling apart. Every person in this family is carrying a private collapse. Richard sells success while failing at almost everything that matters. Dwayne hides inside silence because speaking feels useless. Frank has survived emotional ruin and now moves through the world with exhausted honesty. Grandpa is chaotic, inappropriate, and somehow the only person willing to say the ugly truth out loud. And then there is Olive, the little girl at the center, who does not yet understand that the world is preparing to measure her, judge her, and laugh if she does not fit the costume. That tension is why the film lasts. The comedy is funny, but it has bruises underneath. The van breaking down again and again becomes more than a running joke. It becomes the perfect image of a family that only moves forward when everyone pushes together. By the time the pageant scene arrives, the movie stops being a simple comedy and becomes a small emotional rebellion. It says that dignity does not belong only to winners, beautiful people, or polished performers. Sometimes it belongs to the strange, tired, broken people who keep showing up anyway, even when applause never comes. Mini conclusion. Little Miss Sunshine became cult cinema because it tells losers they are not broken. They may be the only honest people left in the room. Number 5. The Karate Kid, 1984. Some movies become classics because they entertain. The Karate Kid became something stronger because it gave an entire generation a survival manual disguised as a teen drama. Daniel LaRusso is not introduced as a superhero. He is the new kid, the outsider, the easy target, the kind of character viewers instantly understand because almost everyone has felt powerless somewhere in their life. Then comes Mr. Miyagi, not with loud speeches or flashy promises, but with patience, discipline, silence, and tiny lessons that do not reveal their power until Daniel needs them most. That is the genius of the film. Wax on, wax off is not just a training trick. It is the movie's entire philosophy. Growth often feels boring before it becomes strength. The Cobra Kai dojo gives the story its darker edge. They are not just bullies. They represent a corrupted version of masculinity, where fear is mistaken for respect and cruelty is called discipline. Against that, Miyagi's calm becomes almost radical. In 1984, audiences came for kicks, tournaments, and teen rivalry. They stayed for the emotional bond between a lonely boy and a wounded mentor. Number 4. Rocky, 1976. Some midnight movies do not need ghosts, killers, or aliens. They only need one lonely man hitting a slab of meat in a freezing room, while the world quietly expects him to disappear. Rocky is remembered as an inspirational sports classic, but late at night it becomes something rougher, sadder, and far more intimate. This is not really a movie about boxing. It is a movie about being invisible. Rocky Balboa is a small-time fighter from Philadelphia, collecting debts, living in a cramped apartment, talking to his turtles, and trying to carve dignity out of a life that keeps humiliating him. The emotional power comes from how ordinary his pain feels. He is not chasing fame at first. He is chasing proof that he was not born to be forgotten. Sylvester Stallone wrote the story while struggling himself, and that real desperation bleeds through the film's gray streets, empty gyms, and quiet conversations. Philadelphia does not look polished. It looks cold, worn down, and brutally human, like a city where dreams survive only because people are too stubborn to bury them. Adrian gives the film its soft heartbeat, slowly stepping out of fear, while Rocky learns to stand taller inside his own broken life. Mickey's training is harsh, but it turns Rocky's frustration into discipline. The famous steps, the sweat, the bruises, the final fight, they matter because Rocky is not trying to become unbeatable. He is trying to last. Number 3. True Romance, 1993. A love story becomes dangerous when the couple at the center is too reckless, too wounded, and too convinced that fate is secretly protecting them. True Romance feels like it escaped from a neon jukebox, crashed into a crime scene, and somehow walked away smiling with blood on its shoes. Written by Quentin Tarantino and directed by Tony Scott, the film follows Clarence and Alabama, two lonely outsiders who fall into a wild fantasy of love, stolen drugs, mob violence, fast highways, and terrible decisions. But what makes the movie unforgettable is not just the crime. It is the strange innocence buried underneath the chaos. Christian Slater plays Clarence like a man who has watched so many movies that he starts believing real life should follow the same rules. He is romantic, impulsive, delusional, and strangely sincere. Patricia Arquette gives Alabama warmth, sadness, danger, and loyalty, turning her into the emotional center of the storm instead of just another crime movie fantasy. Around them, the film erupts with unforgettable side characters. Gary Oldman's Drexel is terrifying and bizarre, while Christopher Walken and Dennis Hopper share one of the tensest verbal showdowns of the decade. Every scene feels stylish, violent, funny, and slightly doomed. That is the midnight magic of true romance. It sells a fantasy where two damaged people believe love might save them, even while the world around them keeps loading guns. The film became a cult classic because it captures romance as escape, rebellion, and self-destruction all at once. Number 2. The Big Lebowski, 1998. Some films become cult classics because people understand them instantly. The Big Lebowski became legendary because audiences did not fully know what to do with it at first. On the surface, it is a crime comedy about a lazy bowler called the Dude, a ruined rug, a mistaken identity, a fake kidnapping, and a mystery that keeps becoming more ridiculous the longer anyone tries to explain it. But underneath the shaggy madness is one of the strangest anti-detective stories ever made. Jeff Bridges turns the Dude into an accidental philosopher, a man drifting through chaos with a drink in his hand, sandals on his feet, and almost no interest in becoming the hero of his own story. John Goodman's Walter is his explosive opposite, wounded, loyal, intense, and always ready to turn a small inconvenience into a battlefield. The Coen brothers build the film like a classic noir, then replace the sharp private detective with a man who would rather go bowling and keep his rug situation under control. That collision is why the movie keeps growing. Every line feels quotable. Every character feels like they walked in from a different, stranger film. Every scene has the loose, smoky rhythm of a late-night story someone might be misremembering on purpose. When it arrived in 1998, some viewers expected a cleaner comedy and found something too odd to easily categorize. Years later, that confusion became the point. The Big Lebowski is not meant to be solved. It is meant to be revisited, quoted, argued over, and lived inside. Number 1. Pitch Black, 2000. The scariest thing about darkness is not that you cannot see. It is that something inside it may see you perfectly. Pitch Black earns the number 1 spot because it feels engineered for midnight viewing. Isolated, dirty, tense, and built around the exact moment when daylight stops protecting anyone. The story begins with a spacecraft crashing onto a hostile desert planet, where the survivors quickly realize that heat, thirst, injury, and distrust may not be their biggest problems. Then, the real nightmare reveals itself. This world has multiple suns, but when a rare eclipse arrives, the planet falls into total darkness, and the creatures hiding beneath the surface come out to feed. It is a simple premise, but the film uses it with brutal efficiency. Every shadow becomes a threat. Every noise feels close. Every character starts calculating who is useful, who is weak, and who might be sacrificed. Vin Diesel's Riddick became an instant cult figure because he is not presented as a clean hero. He is a prisoner, a killer, and possibly the most dangerous human alive. Yet he may also be the only person equipped to survive what is coming. His altered eyes, calm voice, and predator-like patience make him feel half man, half nightmare. What makes Pitch Black last is its atmosphere. It does not need endless mythology. So the next time Netflix feels too clean, too safe, or too full of forgettable new releases, go hunting after midnight. These cult films are messy, strange, emotional, and sometimes completely unhinged. Exactly why they survived. The real question is not which one is best. It is which one will follow you after the screen goes dark.